Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Milan Reports post-match discussion. Today, we're bringing in a great victory over Cagliari, 1-0 away from home. My name's Riccardo. I'm joined by my friends Matt and Miguel. How are you guys feeling after this Serie A win?
And hey, 3 points is 3 points, but man, they really make you sweat it out, don't they, these days, right? Look, we haven't been in this position in such a long time. Last year, um, after winning the winter title, we taped off, and then Inter kind of coasted to the title. This is the closest I've been thinking about this too. This is the closest we've been to the title since 2011, 2012. And at that point, that was the beginning of the banter era. So it's kind of weird being in this situation in this part of the season and having to like play really meaningful games for a title. But here we are, and look, 3 points is 3 points. We'll get into it, but Miguel, I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, very nerve-wracking game. But yeah, 3 points is 3 points. We're still at the top of the table. Let's keep the momentum going. We have 8 more games now, and you know, we might be the champions of Italy. So let's keep it going.
That's it.
Milan went into the half 0-0 against Cagliari, and then it wasn't until Ismail Benacer volley into the side net that brought us the 1-0 victory, once again showing us his brilliance and being one of the better players on the field. Really excited to go ahead and share player rating, go into some questions, answer some comments here with everyone. So if you guys have any pre-thoughts before I go ahead and put up these ratings, I'll go ahead and do that now.
Miguel, you want to start?
Um, I thought this was an interesting game. I mean, we all knew what was at stake here. Cagliari, trying to escape relegation. They're right above the drop. So yeah, both teams had something, to prove on that pitch. And I thought that we created a lot of opportunities in that first half, but again, we weren't clinical enough. And, we started to fear, like, will those opportunities that, we had come back to haunt us? You had Giroud miss a sitter, Brahim miss a sitter in that first half. And it just looked like one of those days where Milan possibly couldn't find the back of the net. But overall, we found the back of the net and, we got the 3 points. So I'm very happy about that.
Yeah. As you want, Mark Card, if you want to start throwing up the graphic for the ratings, that the team does quite nicely put together and does it pretty quickly as the game is still being played. Yeah, I think from a performance standpoint, look, it's kind of been it's been much of the same, right? It's always feels like defensively we're fine. Kalulu and Tomori, as you guys can see on the screen here, just another dominant nails performance. Some really key tackles, and the conditions were less than ideal, right? Like beyond them being in very good form as a tandem, which again, it's telling that Romagnoli was available for selection here, and Pioli's like, Kalulu's my guy with Tomori. Like, let's run it back. This has been working, and I don't have the actual numbers themselves up right now, but we're almost pushing like 400 minutes and 4 straight clean sheets with these two playing alongside one another. So another tip of the cap to the central defense. Magnon didn't have a ton of chances. I mean, there was a couple of instances at the end with Pavoletti and a ball is bouncing around, but man, he really put that blunder that he had a couple weeks ago behind him, and he's been the same goalkeeper we've seen for the entire season. Midfield wise, I thought Kessie and Benacer being the hero in this game with his great goal. I thought both these two players showed the type of chemistry they've built over the past couple of years. Obviously, with Kessie's situation being very dire and full of a lot of emotion amongst the fan base, he played a good match today. It's funny, I actually tweeted something about Kessie's performance, and I said, take all the emotions out of it, take all the contract stuff out of it. Like, the performance that Kessie put on today is why you just don't bench a player. Like, people are saying bench him, he's treating the club on poorly. He's still being paid, and he put forth a good performance today when Tonali was on the bench, and you saved Tonali. Like, Tonali's been kind of up and down the past, I want to say month. And he hasn't been the same player he was in the first half of the season. So it's a luxury to have options in the midfield. It's a luxury to bring Kessie back to his normal role, away from the number 10 spot. and put in a good performance alongside Benacer, who again, great goal. He scored a goal like this against Genoa. I believe it was around Halloween. If you guys recall, that game was like in a similar spot where we were looking for a goal. He got one, and then I think we got another one to put the game to bed. So the midfield was very strong, and the attack. Look, it's kind of been the same pattern we've seen for a while now. It's a team of moments, right? And the first half for the attack was very grim. What do we do? Brahim, Macias, Giroud, and Benacer combined for a great goal. And, we criticized Brahim for the performance he had, and rightfully so. Same thing with Macias and some of the others. But we also have to credit him in that moment for showing the patience, showing the wherewithal to find Giroud, who puts it put on a tee for Benacer. So all in all, this was maybe not the standout performance where you're going to have 6, 7 guys who all put in 7, 6, 7.5s, but it was a classic, like gritty, grinded out away from home. And look, the conversation has always been that Milan can play to the level of their bigger opponents. What do they do away against the teams that are, smaller and down in the table? Cagliari are what, 16th place? They got 3 points. And that's to Miguel's point, off the top, and what we talked about. 8 games left. That's all that matters, especially with Inter dropping points to Fiorentina and Napoli putting the pressure on us to get a result here.
Miguel, you mentioned earlier that this might be one of those scenarios where Milan was going to go ahead and face failure in scoring goals or looking to put the game away. We talked a lot last week where we had a lot of anxiety, where we thought maybe Milan needed an extra goal to put the game away. Were your emotions like that this game? What were you feeling leading up to the final whistle?
Yeah, I think the last 15 minutes of the game were super nerve wracking. You had a couple opportunities where, Calabria guy needs to just put it in the corner and shoots it right at Cranio. Like things like that, get you nervous because you saw in those last 10 minutes, Cagliari, they were like, okay, we have a chance here. Let's hit them on the counter and let's grab a goal. And you saw how they hit the post and Magnan scrambled. The Milan of old probably would have dropped points in that moment. It just goes to show you how far we've come over the last 10 years. This team really trusts each other. We have a great defense in Kalulu, Tomori, Magnan. Even Theo Hernandez, his tackling today was super crisp. Didn't make any errors, no mistakes, all ball, no fouls. So it just goes to show you, even though that this is such a young team, they've grown so much over the past 3 seasons, and they keep getting better and better. And if they can continue this, they really could really do something big here at Milan. They're all young, they're on long-term contracts. They can stay here for some time, and this won't be just a one and done thing. This can be a consistent thing for Milan. And that's all that Milan has been hoping for the last decade.
With Theo Hernandez, real quick, Riccardo, and then I'll kind of invite you guys to speak on this. Theo Hernandez, right? We've all seen him make those trademark runs and score those goals with that left foot, and it's so exciting. It's such a relief to have a player in that left back position who is one of the best in world football, and combining with Leao for a great side. But lately, it's almost as if he's really picked it up defensively. And you're right, Miguel, you said he's, it's Kalulu, Tomori getting all the glory, and rightfully so. They've been fantastic. But there have been moments the past couple weeks where Teo's had to play a more defensive role. He's had to do a little bit more grunt work on the back end versus being a player that just drives forward and doesn't do his assignment defensively. So if you guys want to speak to that a little bit, because I think that's been something that maybe not a lot of people have talked about, that Theo has sort of upped his game to become a little bit more well-rounded, a little bit more complete, and less of a one-trick pony.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say right off the bat, not only do I think that his game defensively has improved, but the way that he continues to do his trademark runs and even pick up the ball more central in the field to go ahead and start those runs inside, giving Leao more space out wide has been more fun to watch. And in terms of him picking up defensively, I know that Kalulu and Tomori might get a little bit more of the spotlight because, as I mentioned before, I think one of Milan's weaknesses is when he does go up and then who steps in on that hole. We've seen Tonali step in there before to cover, and I know Kessia has done that with Kalulu and Tomori getting a little bit wider. And maybe the camera is really highlighted on the two center backs when, for example, in the game against Napoli, Osimhen was really getting the ball out wide a lot, and they double team to close him down. And us as fans, we were loving that because it just shows the strength that these two center backs have to go ahead and close down Serie A quality player like that. But yeah, don't want to go ahead and take anything away from Theo Hernandez. Defensively, he has been better. I think it's really started again when we saw that one we won against Dumfries. I think personally for me, it's been an uphill for him. The, I mean, in terms of his defensive ability, just not to dive in as much all the time, to hold up play and keep that defensive formation. So, yeah, I'm gonna have to go ahead and agree with you there, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I think look, it's players are going to have to do things maybe they're not used to doing, the rest of
Mhm.
the season, right? Like Ibrahimovic, at halftime, I was looking, I'm like, all right, this has to be the game for Ibrahimovic. Like he's been back for a couple weeks. Like take the gloves off, like let him get 15, 20 minutes. Let's get some burn here. And then, you bring him on and it's like he's playing a couple minutes and it's not like the type of role that you'd expect a guy like him to be playing because he's always been at the forefront of everything we've been doing, really since he arrived. But then you're seeing guys like Salamakers come off the bench, and he was starting most of the season. Like players are going to have to get comfortable with doing the unconventional work. If that means coming off the bench and playing as a number 10, or playing in the midfield, or doing this, doing that. Like a perfect example is Kalulu. He's taken his role in stride. He's always been a player that has played as a right back. He's playing as a fullback. He's doing the job there, but also he's nails defensively, essentially alongside Tomori. So I think that's what you're starting to see. Like those are the finer details that you're starting to see down the stretch here, and those are going to be huge focuses. They tend to get lost, in the game-to-game scruffs, in the middle of the year. But when you have like the final bunch of games left, and the margins are so thin, it's a tackle by Teo Hernandez. It's wow, you know what? It's Salamakers winning a ball and us being able to reset and burn the clock out. Like those sorts of things are just massive, and they become much more magnified down the stretch. But also, those are the things that make champions. Like there's always going to be those defining moments throughout the season where you're looking. I think it was I don't know if you guys are familiar with like the Milan Bible, the guy who used to be the Milan Bible. Um, he pretty much said, like Rodney Strasser, right? When we won the Scudetto, he scored like a huge goal in like a 1-0 game. And that wound up being like such a pivotal moment to like us securing the title. And even last year, right, where we played against Elas Verona away, and it was Rod Krunic making a great free kick, and we win that game. Like those things, you look back at moments and you look about like the unsung heroes, and that's what I think you're going to start to see down the stretch here with some of the guys we have in the squad. And that's a credit to the work Pioli has done with this group, right? We've criticized, Elliott for not, maybe reinforcing a little bit stronger in the market. But Pioli's just saying, I'm working with what I got. Like, let's next one. It's a next one up mentality with this team. And you have to applaud the work he's done. Obviously, he got a 6.5 here, but I think, it's just hard for me to give him a 6.5 because he's been such a great coach. Really hasn't been given all that much from a market standpoint.
What would you give him for today's rating?
I think he's got to get a nice round 7. I think he's got to get the bump up there. I just think that, look, the performance in the first half was very sloppy, and collectively it wasn't that convincing. And we were kind of running around with our heads cut off to end the game. But I think from a preparation standpoint, like getting these guys like focused for the match, get it going on the road against a team that, look, it is in a position where they're not safe from the drop. Like these instances are very difficult. And I will say this too. The game against Empoli last week wasn't convincing, but there's something to be said about like playing first and getting a win and then being able to throw it over to Inter, who dropped points to Torino, versus this weekend where you have Napoli and Inter play ahead of you. Now everyone's like looking like, can Milan like finally take advantage of this? Like, are they going to slip up or are they going to take advantage and get 3 points? And they got the 3 points. Like those things speak to the character and like the I guess the chemistry and togetherness that this team has.
Miguel, I saw you nod your head there. You think that Pioli should go ahead and receive a little bit of a higher rating than 6.5. Anything else you want to go ahead and add on to that?
Yeah, I completely agree with Matt. Pioli, I think he deserves a 7. Yeah, the first half wasn't convincing, but that's not really Pioli's fault. If you really look at the things here, Pioli prepares for this game. The players
Missed
created
chances
opportunities.
too. This game could have been 2-0, 3-0. Like we missed some chances here. So I think not to cut you off, but he put the team into good positions. We just are struggling to finish right now.
Exactly. And, right back to your point where, this guy, he really hasn't had that much since he signed his contract. It's like, okay, we'll get you a couple players here, but, you have to work with what you got until we get leeway to spend some more. And he's just put his head down and he's got to work. He's gotten a kick out of these boys. He's gotten them to believe in themselves. I keep saying this. Everybody on this team knows their role and they are happy with their role and they respectfully play it whenever they're called upon when they come up on the pitch. You look at a guy like Rade Krunic, like you said last season, that free kick really altered, that season because we're having a low, and Rade Krunic just stepped up that day, and that led us to making second place and clinching top 4 and returning to the Champions League. So yeah, unsung heroes are going to be the theme for these next 8 games.
Right, like even like you're looking at all the guys who have scored goals this year for Milan, and it's Benacer. Like I know he has it in him. He has a really good left foot. He has good technique too. Like the goal he scored against Genoa today, like really good left-footed technique. But like, was anybody betting? Did anybody have a bet on Benacer being an anytime goal scorer in this game? Hell no.
Highly doubted.
You know what I'm saying? You're not looking for him to score goals. It's Leao, it's Giroud, it's maybe Brahim, it's someone from the penalty spot. And it's Benacer who gives you the winning goal. And it's a great one. So like, absolutely unsung heroes. Like it's just this team being ready for the moment and ready to step up and say, I'm going to be the hero today. I'm going to put it next week. It can be Florenzi. It can be someone from the bench. So that's I think what people have to look at with Pioli. Like there's going to be results that are going to be dicey, and there have been, Salernitana, and people are so quick to say like, oh, Pioli didn't do this, Pioli didn't do that. I'm like, dude, the guy's chasing for a title. We're in the driver's seat for a title, and give me the and give me the total amount that we've spent to back him on the market in comparison to Juve. We didn't get a big time striker. We're still penny pinching for a striker. We didn't get anybody in January. We didn't get another central defender like everyone was saying that we would get at the minimum. This is what he has. Rebic hasn't kicked on. Like this is the guy. This is the squad we have, and he's making it work, and that's a sign of a really good coach, in my opinion. I think people need to give Pioli a lot more credit than they do, because when we lose or we drop points, it's Pioli. He gets hit. When we win, it's the players, Tomori, Kalulu, and that's fine. But Pioli gets these guys in positions to succeed and to play well.
And we've seen over and over here on our podcast how much Pioli has shaped the players mentally, going into halves, just seeing the players come out and the changes they have made to the game. So we're always going to go ahead and give a props to Padre Pioli here. But I'll go ahead and move over to our man of the match here, Ismael Benacer, getting the goal, rating of 7.5. This is his second week in a row where we've talked to him as the man of the match. Miguel and I spoke with him about him last week against Empoli. Continues to be one of the players that shines in this Milan team. Are we looking here at a possible player of the year for us? This is open for anyone.
I feel like that's debatable. There's too many players on this squad who have, put the team on their back. You look at someone like Theo Hernandez. He's shown immense growth. He took the captain's armband for a couple of games. He became the penalty taker when Zlatan and Giroud weren't there. You can argue that he could be MVP. And you look at someone like Benacer, who's been arguably one of our best midfielders. Or you can also look at someone like Tomori, who, ever since he got here, he earned his stripes as a starting center back. And whenever he's been called upon, he's been there. Apart from his little injury where he missed, a couple of matches, there's multiple players in this squad that can be argued for MVP. So I don't think we can judge MVP right now until the season fully ends and we see how everything pans out with the rest of these 8 games. But there's a lot of players here that could be MVP.
Good. That's exactly what I wanted to hear, just to see if there was more insight of this. I know obviously I want to go ahead and put Benacer as well, but you mentioned Theo Hernandez and Fikayo Tomori and their scenarios. So likewise, I do still believe that there's still a lot of time left to go ahead and decide there, but definitely don't want to go ahead and say that his efforts, Benacer, haven't gone unnoticed here. Matt?
Yeah, no, I think and what makes these things so
Mhm.
impressive when talking about Benacer, right? Miguel, you touched upon the players that we have are young and they're staying here. Like Leao, ready for a contract renewal. Benacer, ready for a contract renewal. Calabria signed way back in the beginning of the season. Teo Hernandez already committed. Like it's refreshing to see like Benacer just really grow into a star on our club, and we're gonna have him locked up. Those are the things I look at, and it kind of makes you smile a little bit because we haven't had these types of quality of player in such a long time. Like us, looking at the midfield and like, wow, we got like Montolivo, Michael Essien, like these are the guys we're playing in Champions League games against Barcelona. And now I'm looking at the midfield options we have now and that we will have going into next season with Adley, with Pobega potentially, with potentially Renato Sanchez. Like it's refreshing. And getting back to that conversation about who would be the player of the year for Milan, it's still too early. I think there's several guys in contention for it, but that's the great thing about it. Like there's in last year, the year prior, Ibra, because we were so heavily relying upon him for results and to get us out of some shadier positions, for lack of a better term, throughout the season. But I can look at 5 or 6 guys on my hand. I can look at Tomori, the fact that Cagliari goes down and he's your main defender. Like he's the bedrock of that defense. Romagnoli goes down. Gabbia is not quite the player we've hoped at this point of his career at the club, although he's still young. Being able to take Kalulu under his wing and play alongside him, a traditional right back or fullback. And then you look at Sandro Tonali. We can't forget the great first half of the season he had. Leao. So Magnon, right? Like being able to replace Gigio and do it in such a fashion where it's like, oh yeah, we replaced the best goalkeeper in Italy with now the best goalkeeper in Italy. Like that's crazy to think. So again, we have names on this team. Like we have guys that if you look at, and I always try and use this as a measuring stick, guys. How many of these players would you be comfortable playing in a round of 16 match knockout UCL? I mean, we got like 5 to 6 guys like comfortably. Magnon, Tomori, Teo, Benacer, Tonali, Leao. Like that's a good measuring stick, and that's a good indication of the strength of this project right now. So, from a player of the year standpoint, we'll wait and see. But Benacer is definitely in that conversation. Did Riccardo freeze?
I think he might have.
Oh yeah, I think he might have frozen. I was trying to be still and not say anything, but I think he might have frozen. Oh man, let me see.
Any thoughts on Pioli subs or any of the players who ended
Yeah,
on pitch?
yeah, he must have got some connection issue. On the subs part, I mean, it's kind of tough, right? Because I think at that point, the way the game was shaping up, the conditions of the field were shaping up. You were just looking for fresh legs. Like I could see, like a lot of the guys in that team were tired, running back
Mhm.
and forth. It was just kind of a really chippy, dicey game at the end, where you're just having to exert everything you have left in the tank. Um, I was definitely a big fan of Salamakers coming on when he did. That's the type of moment you bring on a guy like Salamakers, where he is proficient and lacks from a technical aspect or being able to create goals. At that point, you're looking for someone who's going to win some balls, is going to run his tail off, win some fouls, and that's exactly what he did. He had one chance at the end that got blocked, but that's I think like Salamakers, Krunic, anytime they come in, at the very least, they're going to work, they're going to grind. And I know that's something that maybe people take for granted, but that's something that in this match that was called upon. That was something that was very important. So all in all, I think the subs were fine. But then again, like Miguel, like who is he calling from the bench? Like it's going to be like the same five guys. It doesn't really have a long list of options. So the same guys that he consistently brings on, you got to work with what you got. And I think today, given the circumstances, given the nature of the game, I'll take what we can get here. What about you?
Yeah, and I agree with you. Like it just kind of goes back to what I was saying about how everybody knows their role, and Salamakers and Krunic have kind of adapted to the role of, hey, we're gonna call you off the bench in the 75th minute or whatever, whenever there's tired legs, run your heart out, fight for every ball, and let's get the victory. And that's what they've done. Krunic and Salamakers are two players that are going to press as hard and as fast as they can whenever there's the ball's in the opposition court or even on a counterattack. So their defensive efforts may be overlooked because they're not the best of players, they're not superstars, but they're integral to this team. Salamakers coming off the bench, giving 10, 15 minutes of him just running his heart out, makes a difference. Krunic the same. Although Salamakers should have scored that, we got the 3 points, and all the little things matter when it comes to building a championship winning team and actually winning a title. So we just have to keep the momentum here.
I think one thing to look at too is, everyone's talking about, oh, Brahim hasn't had a great season, or Macias has been this, or Rebic hasn't kicked on. He's so strong in the second half, and I try to look at like a full season in any sport in like pockets and small sample sizes, and I look at a moment like today going forward for some of the guys in this team, like Brahim, like Rebic, like I don't care what you did previously. Like if you can give me 7 or 8 good games and good performances, and you scored 3-4 goals and you create 1 or 2 assists, that's massive. Like that'll do such wonders to this team, because right now, if you notice, like Leao's like in a little bit of a quiet streak here. He was so hot and so much in a comfortable zone where he was scoring goals. Everything that we were creating was coming from him. He looked unstoppable. But now it's like the offensive outage has really kicked in for this team, but somehow we're scrapping a goal here, a goal there to make it work. But someone else has to step up. And I actually wrote an article about this, like basically 3 points for Milan to secure a title. Was one, they're a record against smaller side provincial teams. The attack, like it can't be Leao and Teo having like their little moments. It can't be Drew getting a half decent chance every 90 minutes. Like Rebic, Brahim, like someone's got to step up and someone's got to finish these chances, because it's not a chance creation thing. I see a lot of people on Twitter saying, we don't create enough chances. We kind of do create enough chances. If you look at how these matches play out, we're just a little bit too wasteful, and just being a little bit more finer, a little bit more opportunistic in the box will make results like this a little bit more comfortable. We could have had 2 or 3 goals in this game. We had 1, it worked, but that's something that if I had to take away, I'm looking for that little moment where like finally we get like 2 to 3 goals and we just bury a team, because I feel like we haven't had one of those results in a while.
Well said, guys. I want to go ahead and just quickly do a overview of the goalkeepers here. Not the goalkeepers, of the players here, starting with the goalkeeper, Mike Magnan. And we'll just go ahead and quickly go through them, discuss here if the ratings are fair or not. And to start off with Mike here with the rating of 6.5. Matt, earlier on the stream, you mentioned that we have the best goalkeeper in Serie A. Looks like since that little blunder back at Salernitana, Mike Magnan is back to his excellent form. He hasn't had much to do again today, but he's continued to go ahead and be an enormous presence in the sticks, and his box has continued to go ahead and dominate that. Guys, fair rating of 6.5.
A little higher.
A little
higher for me. And the reason why I say that is because we were so used to seeing Gigio pull out the miraculous save, and you're like, wow, he made like 6-7 key saves. But even in a match like Magnan, where he's so supported by a great defense and he doesn't maybe have to make so many saves, I could count maybe I need more than one hand to count how many times he's passed himself out of a press or passed himself into a position where we're able to receive that ball and progress play. Like those are the things I look at. And he does it in such a calm manner, where I believe there was like 75th or 76th minute where Cagliari were pushing guys forward, and rather just bomb it down and just concede possession, he like dumped it over the top to Calabria, and it was a perfect pass right in front of him. And now you have space, and now you can progress the ball keep the ball in their half, in a foul, kill some time. Like those are the things you, again, to my finer details point, like the fact that he's such a good passer, and being able to get us out of precarious situations. I always just take a little bit more stock in that. So I think, between some of the key saves he had to make, and just his overall presence and commanding of his box, which to your point, like the blunder he cost us against Salernitana, so being able to react and grow from that, I give him a slight bump because I think he could have more clean sheets than he has on the season, but I think he more times than not maybe doesn't get as much love with his his footwork and his distribution, and how that ultimately helps us get results the way we do.
Well said. I definitely want to go ahead and emphasize with you here that Mike Maignan is so good off with his feet, and the distribution starting from the back is critical now in today's game to be able to have an additional player on the field who can be an option for you and starting the attack from the back. And I definitely want to go ahead and point out that a lot of what I've seen people, looking at his distribution style probably has started when we watched that assist against Sampdoria where he played Leao through. So it's been a little bit under the microscope in the more recently, as we're evaluating Mike Maignan not just by his beautiful saves, but how he's commanding the box, his presence in between the sticks, and now his distribution. So I'm gonna go ahead and agree with you guys there. Definitely a little bit of a bump there. 7 would have been nice, but we'll just go ahead and continue here. Theo Hernandez, a 7 here, continue to go ahead and do his trademark runs, giving space to Rafael Lau out wide. Great defensive performance as well today. Rating of 7 for me is pretty fair. You guys?
Yeah. Yeah, I think 7's fair. I mean, if we're going to speak on just the whole defense, and maybe if we could just do it that way, I think that might be a little bit easier. I would say Theo is 7, for all the reasons we talked about, right? Like being able to carry the ball forward, very strong, making some key tackles. And I think you could probably put Tomori and Kalulu on that same level, or you could even rotate, you could even flip flop. You could even put Tomori, Kalulu as at 7, and give Theo maybe 6.5 or 7. But I think if you're going to do anything, if I'm looking at the numbers here and I see Tomori, Kalulu with 6.5, Calabria is on a 6.5 then. Like I would put him lower then, because I think he missed a key chance at the end. Crossing the ball is kind of like a little bit of a concern right now for him. I know the conditions weren't good, so you have to play that in there. But I think he's had better performances. This is not where we want to see Calabria. We need to get him back to pre-injury Calabria. So I was a little bit disappointed with him, but overall defensively, I think as a unit we're fine.
I will go ahead and ask here, and point out that recently we've been talking about how Calabria's form has been a little bit lower than that threshold that we've been wanting, maybe a little bit out of form. He's not been there as an option attack, going up with those crosses recently due to some question in his form and ability and mentality. Misses the opportunity for the call up for the Italian national team. How do you think this plays into effect for the rest of the season mentally for the player guys and try to win the Scudetto?
You can go. You can speak on that if you want.
I think Calabria is the type of player who just keeps his head down and just gets to work. We saw it a couple seasons ago. He was rumored to leave the club to go to Sevilla, and then he just had this wonderful run of form. And ever since his injury, he's kind of tapered off. I just think that he needs time to get back to his normal self and just build that self confidence. We tend to forget that these players, they need confidence to perform at the highest level. You look at someone like Benacer, probably before AFCON, he wasn't where he was right now. But, he went to AFCON, he had decent performance there, he came back, and now he's hot in form. That's the same thing with all the rest of the players. They thrive off of confidence. So, to be honest, if Calabria grabbed a goal today, I think that his confidence would have skyrocketed and you would see better performances from him. It's just one of those things where, highs and lows, it's part of life and it happens. But his time is coming. There's still 8 more games. He can be that player that steps up in one of these next 8 games, and that'll give him that boost to get him to the finish line and perform at the highest level that we've seen at the beginning of the season.
Calabria is a more of like a blue collar type, like workman like player. I kind of think of him in a similar fashion or similar mold to like what Abate was towards like the
Yeah.
tail end of his career for us. Never at any point was he going to be like, wow, this guy's the best player on the field at a given period. And I know Calabria has that in him because he's had some really good performances this year. But being able to pull on that armband and to have lead by example, lead do other things that are maybe hard to quantify in a performance. Like I think that I look for a lot of time in Calabria. I mean, defensively at this point, he's of the four players, he's fourth, like based on form, based on probably where the fan base would rate the player. But I think he does a lot of things that you have to have in the squad, and he's the exact type of player that Pioli likes to have. He's gonna, to Miguel's point, he's gonna keep his head down. He's gonna work hard. You're never gonna have to question, where his head's at. The mentality is it gonna be there in a match, in a big match? He's always gonna be there mentally. I just think right now as Miguel was mentioning, he needs to get his legs underneath him. He needs to get back into that gear that he was pre-injury, and I don't doubt it because I think he's a strong player. He got the big renewal. He's at at an important club. He's playing an important role as the captain. So I think he will grow and he will get back to what he was earlier in the season.
Well said. Go ahead and leave the topic of Calabria on a positive note there and move over to our center back partnership in Tomori and Kalulu, both receiving a rating of 6.5. As the partnership duo here continues to go ahead and show that they are an impenetrable force, is this rating for both of them a 6.5 fair?
Bump it up to
Yeah,
7.
7.
As I mentioned, if Calabria was a 6.5, Tomori and Kalulu were just better on the day. And for that reason, I think they would have to get bumped up to 7 if we're gonna, talk particulars here with actual ratings. But I don't want to go too much into it. They've been great for us, and it's a really credit to the growth of Kalulu. I mean, like guys, like if you had to, we got him for like 500,000 euros, right? A steal. But if you had to look at like what his value would be right now, like throw me a number. Like if he was on the market and he was saying, hey, like I'm playing at X club right now and a team was looking to go in and swoop and buy him, what would he go for? I'm just
At
curious.
least 30 million plus.
Yeah. I mean, I truly think so. I think also too French players are like their stock is so tremendously high, but the fact that he's like not even serviceable at two positions, he's good at two positions. Like that's crazy. But Riccardo, what do you think?
No, I'm definitely going to go ahead and agree with you guys. They're definitely two solid individuals in the back. And Kalulu, great piece of business by the back office to not only get him for a cheap, definitely his stock value is really high right now. He continues to be a servant for the club, asked to step up where needed to be. Just like what you guys said, if Calabria is getting that rating of 6.5 based on his performance today, definitely would like to see these two individuals get a little bit of a bump up. Am continued to be impressed by Tomori. I think today specifically, not just his defensive abilities, but what really stood out to me was the fact that this gentleman is very cool and compact under pressure with the ball at his feet. He is not afraid to look at playing Kessier with pressure or even Benacer with pressure or even invite the pressure in to, shoot out a big ball with his left foot to find, one of the forwards in the channels. So today, for me, Tomori, I was definitely taking a look here at his distribution and his composure with the ball, and for me, definitely deserves a little bit of a bump. But
And it comes off
Kalulu,
the back of not being called up by Southgate, right? Like
yeah, and exactly. And the other day, I think I showed a lot of frustration because of some of the other selections over Tomori. This definitely should go ahead and drive him and be more hungry to go get the Scudetto because when you see players, and all due respect to these players like Connor Cody and Tyrone Mings, get the call up in front of you. I understand Harry Maguire. There's a whole history behind that. FA captain, all of that. His poor form, still should be raising questions why Tomori didn't get the call up. But you mentioned this should definitely be the fuel that definitely sparks him to continue to be an impenetrable defensive unit and to hopefully go ahead and lead us to win the Scudetto. Overall, with him, Kalulu, and Magnan in the back, that definitely is sigh of relief that the attack can go ahead and start us deep back as their own half. So it doesn't necessarily have to go ahead and be a big ball up always to Giroud. It could be distributed out to talented pivot midfielders, and even Kessia and Krunic can go ahead and hold on to the pressure. So Want to go ahead and move over to our our midfield unit here. Great stuff from our defense here. They continue to go ahead and shut out opponents here. Last week, also shut out this week again. Um, we'll start with not Kessie, Brahim Diaz getting the start here after 2 games of not starting in a row. Sandro Tonali not being able to participate, so Kessie had to go ahead and drop back. So we saw Diaz enter the 10. We saw that chance that he missed in the first half. Other than that, did you guys see anything else from Brahim Diaz today?
He just had the one pass to in the build up to that goal by Benacer. Um, it's been hard for me to watch Brahim because I think like he's taken on a lot of criticism, and a lot of it is warranted. I get that, but I think it's people are saying like, oh, we shouldn't bring him back, and I'm like, we have him on a 2-year loan with an option. Like if you truly want to say like, hey, like let's give him another year, I'm fine with that because I still think there's a good player here. I know people talk about his size and all these sorts of things. But even more so than that, like the passes aren't there. We see glimpses against Inter off the bench where we had the comeback, like he was important in there in getting that comeback victory over Inter. But he's just too inconsistent. I think he has been given a lot of opportunity. Like I know people would point to maybe others and saying, he deserves a little bit more burn. He deserves a little bit more of a look. Like Brahim's had more than his opportunity because of injuries, because of just the nature of this squad and how it's built. So I didn't see enough of him today, unfortunately. I'm hoping that, like I said, next 7-8 games he comes on. Maybe he is one of those unsung heroes. If you guys recall last year, like the last 5-6 games of the season, he came on strong. He had a good performance against Torino in that big lopsided victory for us. He had the big goal against Juve in the 3-0 win in Turin. So I think he's capable of it. I just think that once he's put into positions where he has to get into more physical altercations and physical battles, that's where he really struggles. In space, when he has a little bit of time to pick his spot, like he did today, to find Giroud and show some patience, I think he could be important. But from a rating standpoint, I just don't think he did enough today. And I thought he had moments to do a little bit more. He just didn't cut it.
Miguel, any thoughts on Brahim Diaz?
No, I think Matt said it all. We didn't see too much of him, but we see glimpses of him, um, inconsistent. But yeah, I think he has his moments where he just shows up, and when he shows up, it's absolutely wonderful.
Well said. I'm going to go ahead and agree with both of you here. There is some inconsistency in the player here. We know that his capabilities and the opportunities he can provide for the team. I will go ahead and, give him the rating of 6 here, and then a little bit going forward, just kind of take a look more at what's going on with our number 10 or CAM position, because we've seen other players step up as well. When Kessie
Mhm.
has stepped up in that position, we've joked even about the fact that he has gone into ghosting performances where he's just not found on the pitch. Likewise with Diaz here, I don't know necessarily. Our friend Vito brought up the fact, a while back, that Milan might struggle here with the finding the perfect replacement for Hakan there in the middle. We've had Krunic even step up in there against the Inter to go ahead and shut down Bravovic. So the number 10 right now, it seems like, whoever's been stepping up there has just disappeared completely from the match. And I don't know tactically what's going on with Pioli, because I also see Leao pushing sometimes. If he's not tight, even Theo Hernandez pushing in. So we'll definitely go ahead and keep a look there. But in terms of chance creation here and just going at goal with that miss, Diaz getting the 6 seems pretty fair to me. So we'll go ahead and quickly move over here to Frank Kessie getting the 6.5, playing alongside Ismail Benacer. Definitely more of one of his more physical games where he has shown himself. Just again, being an opportunity for the center backs to get wider, him slipping into that spot in the middle. I think he's a little bit more comfortable there, playing a little bit deeper than he is on the 10 where Brahim Diaz has done. But I think just, going forward, like to go ahead and see Sandro Tonali and Benacer. But Kessie, despite what's going on here again with the fans, this contract situation in his future, when asked to go ahead and step in here, played fairly well, not bad, not ghost as he's done in the past. So a rating of 6.5 might be on the generous side, but fair.
I think it's fair. I mean, I think he had moments where
Mhm.
the match was kind of in limbo, and him just being able to retain possession was
Mhm.
huge. And those things are very important, especially from his position, right? Like you allow Benacer to be the more creative, uh, visionary in that midfield. You pull the strings, make the passes, heck, even get to the edge of the box and score goals like he did today. But that without having Kessie's presence in there, like Tonali's been playing that role so importantly the entire season. Without him and being able to slide Kessie back into his normal role, as I mentioned, it felt more of like what we had last year, where these two were really the best midfield in Serie A going, right? Because they complemented each other so well. So I'm hoping that at the very least, and I just checked some tweets, people are saying, Kessie at the very least can give us a parting gift and put forth some strong performances to kind of finish up his Milan career. If he does, and we get the Scudetto, I mean, people will be a little bit bummed, but at the same time, like, all right, at least like he put forth his best and he gave us his all, and that's all you could hope for.
That's all you can hope for a gentleman like this. He's definitely done quite a lot for the club here, leading up to a very shaky end here. It's never pretty, but just like you, man, hopefully he can go ahead and still give us a little bit of his talent here going into the final games for the Scudetto. And then we'll just go ahead and move over to our wingers here. Both Leao and Macias getting a rating of 6. Leao not getting on the score sheet here. Definitely a little bit of these games where he has not been able to get on the score sheet, despite what seemed like last month he was always the man to beat the goals or receiving the balls. Still a great young talent. Rating of 6, probably fair in my eyes, and a rating of 6 from Macias, probably fair. Guys, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree. Miguel,
Yeah,
what do you think?
fair
I
enough.
don't think just gonna get too much of a bump here from you.
Yeah, I agree. Fair enough.
I will go ahead and say I'm a little surprised that Macias did go ahead and get the nod to start today. I would thought it was going to go ahead and be Alexis Salamakers, but Pioli really likes Macias, and I mean I'm not going to go ahead and go against that. But
Maybe he just like Salamakers off the bench. Like I think it
yeah,
gives you like a little bit of a different look. Like in a match where if you start Salamakers and he doesn't do much, which again, there's moments in matches where he doesn't do anything for 65, 70 minutes, and then you bring on Macias and it's like the way it's kind of playing out doesn't really call for a type of player like that.
hmm
Like I'd rather go and bring a guy like Macias on who has a little bit more, not a little more quickness. I would say they're probably comparable in that respect. Although in a straight line, I think Macias 1v1 is better. Um, but this was the perfect example. Like if you can't get anything with Macias, then then let's put on a runner. Let's put on a workhorse who can at least play a more important role defensively. We'll track back. We'll work off the ball to win the ball back. And I think that's exactly what he did. So I think it's more of a strategic um, conversation that Pioli has within about whether or not to start one over the other. Because I think at this point, I think it's obvious that both can't be relied upon. Like I don't think anyone's saying like, wow, Macias, like he's been nails for us, or Salamakers has been fantastic. I think it's just a matter of like play by ear. Let's see how the game progresses and see what the game calls for with them too. They're kind of like right wing by committee.
that's what I was thinking here. The same where Salamakers would definitely be an option to go ahead and come off the bench. Definitely with Calabria tired legs towards the end of the game. Alexis has more of that edge on the defensive side. We've seen him go as far back as into our own box. So definitely helpful there. Just didn't know if, going forward for the rest of the season, it was still going to go ahead and be 50-50 where each game one or the other could start. But if we're kind of getting glimpses here of Pioli where he's just letting Macias start the game. And then when Alexis is needed to go ahead and close out the game, he's being brought on. So
We're getting close to potentially seeing calls for like Samu, right? Like like these two wingers have been pretty poor. It's like, are we going to see Samu because it's been that bad? Like maybe we will. Maybe Rebic at the right wing spot. I don't know. I think like that's something that you have to maybe like consider, right? Like what do you guys think about that? Because can we go 8 games with getting no production from the right wing spot? Like I think like you have to start having that conversation where it's like, all right, Rebic is out of position, but from a technical standpoint, from like a quality standpoint, you kind of just want to have your best players on the field. And I think like Leao, Rebic, maybe Drew up top, Brahim as a number 10, like maybe that's something we go to, but I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here.
no, Miguel and I had this discussion here last week in the introduction of maybe Rebic at the right wing because
Mm-hmm.
our right wing, there's, as you guys know, there's not one solid individual who, as you said, is nails. This is his position. So um, if we're gonna go ahead and see the introduction of our best players, I mean, experimenting with Rebic right wing, um, I don't know. What are your thoughts there, Miguel? I'm indifferent. So
I say give it a try with Rebic on the right wing because if you really look at it, Rebic hasn't gotten that much playing time this season. He's been
Mhm.
someone who's been coming off the bench. But we know he has hot streaks in the second half of the season, but that's been, in seasons where he's gotten more playing time or he's a starter. So if things aren't working out on the right wing, why not give him a chance to prove himself and see if that works? And if that doesn't work, you get a game where you call Samu off the bench, you give him 20 minutes, see what happens there. Um, but yeah, it's crunch time. We have 8 more games. You need to field your best players on the field that are going to get us the victory because every 3 points that we get from here on are super vital to the race.
Well said. Definitely want to go ahead and put our best lineups here for these crunch time moments going forward. Um, and talking about forwards here, Olivier Giroud with the rating of 6.5 after laying off an assist for Ismail Benacer, popping the ball up just enough for that technique of a strike. Giroud getting a rating of 6.5 seems a little bit fair for me. It's definitely a lot of the times single up there by himself, trying to go ahead and win the ball and hold possession, waiting for our unit to go ahead and move up together. Continues to bleed red and black for our team, literally taking in these challenges and continues to go ahead and play. Strong individual who has stepped up for Ibrahimovic, and the man has character. The man has a great resume, and this is exactly the type of individual that I like going into these last few games in the Coppa Italia and try to win the Scudetto. So a rating of 6.5 today in a game like this, very well deserved.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Giroud is with Ibrahimovic being injured and not being able to have that same presence, that vocal presence on the field. I think we talked about it with Sabrina like weeks ago, but it still rings true that he's able to um, have a different leadership style and try and usher these guys along throughout the match, throughout the course of 90 minutes. And I think Giroud does a lot of that well. And the type of basically when we got Giroud, the way this season has played out, that's kind of exactly how I would envision it. He's not going to put up a ton of goals. He's going to put in some good performances. He's going to be a good leader. He's going to be a guy that is dependable, does a lot of things right, is good coming into the midfield. He's good off the ball. And that's exactly what the type of player he's been. He had a couple decent looks today, which, again, if you probably ask him, he would like to have back. But I think he has had his moments, right? He had the game against Napoli. He had the brace against Inter. So like he's kind of, if he doesn't score, he's kind of owed one, right? Because I think he's been very reliable and he's been one of the more reliable players throughout much of the season here.
All right, and with that being said, just the other individuals who went ahead and joined the match here, Krunic going ahead and come in for Diaz, Rebic for Leao, and Salamakers being introduced. They got a rating average around 6.5. Some of those ratings seem pretty fair. We discussed a little bit about Rebic not getting those minutes, and when he does go ahead and come on, just need to go ahead and see a little bit more. It's been a while here since he's had that injury. He's had a couple of games here to get that performances in, but the overall image with him, it's that he's been getting limited minutes there. So um, looks like here we definitely want to go ahead and experiment to see maybe him at the right wing to go ahead and see what we can go ahead and see new with the team, bring out the best in him. Um, but overall, from the substitutes here and the substitute that Pioli made, seemed pretty fair, and I think they did a well job. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree.
I would say so. Yeah. I mean,
Likewise, I think it's always a great opportunity to go ahead and bring on Alexis Salmakers when you're up 1-0 or something super close and you need to hang on to a lead. He's an individual who has the mentality to go ahead and come back and defend. Krunic, we know that he can go ahead and step up when needed wherever, and for him to go ahead and step up as an additional individual in the midfield and bring that defensive mindset. I think those two guys coming in at the time where maybe that second goal wasn't going to come, or if it was going to come, it was going to come through BS. But Pioli had the mindset that maybe let's just go ahead and lock on and fortify and just get out of here with the 1-0 3 points. So hat off to Pioli. These subs were pretty well. I think overall the ratings were pretty fair as well. Any closing remarks, guys, on these player ratings here?
one thing I want to just bring up is I'm hoping that in matches like this, because our options are so limited. I think when you cut out Riccardo, me and Miguel were talking about the subs as well, and given the limited options he has, it's like, all right, well, you're upset with us bringing on Salamakers. It's like that's all he has. So what do you want him to do? Now that Lacetic is supposedly ready to go, like from a physical standpoint and like a training standpoint, like he's ready to go with the team from what I've been reading. I would love to see a little bit of him throughout the rest of the season because he's a young kid that joined in January and he's part of a title race. Like he's part of AC Milan chasing for a title. So it'd be kind of cool for us to be in pretty favorable positions in some matches going forward, where you can bring him on for 15 minutes, and you're like, okay, let's let this kid get his feet wet in a kind of controlled environment where he's not like, running around on a rain drenched field where he can risk injury, but where you could give him 10 minutes and he could play a match. So that's my closing argument. Let's hope we can get like a cozy lead in the next couple games, and you could bring on Lacetic and he could get like his actual debut.
Exactly. Those are exactly the type of games that I want to see these young individuals come on to give them the opportunity when we have that comfortable league. Because I don't think, if you guys remember, we were complaining a little bit. One of the games we were chasing, we were running out of attacking options that we had to throw in. Daniele Maldini. Nothing against the individual, but it's not the time.
Right.
Miguel, you had something?
Yeah, I was gonna say Lazetic actually made his debut today with the Primavera, but he came off with a back injury. So we're hoping that it's nothing serious, but yeah, it would be really nice for us to get a cozy 3-0 or 4-0 lead, and then bring him or some other youngster onto the pitch and give him some playing time. But yeah, that's what I wanted to add on.
There you go.
Well, everyone, great comments here on the player ratings here. I'll go ahead and put them up here for another minute while we go ahead and just dive into one or two comments here as we reach the hour mark for the podcast. And then everyone, go ahead and enjoy your weekend. So I'll go ahead and pop up here a few ones that we can go ahead and take a chat at. And I will say that in that moment that I did get disconnected, I did lose a lot of the comments here, but no worries. I was still able to read all of them before I got the disconnection. So right off the bat, this is a great question here from Faterio. Pioli said that we need to improve on last season's point total. We are 13 points off of 79 points. Guys, what do you think we could possibly end up on?
Whatever allows us to get a Scudetto. That's my number.
Honestly.
The number, whatever the number is.
Whatever the number is. If I had to throw a number at it, I mean, well, let me throw it back at you. How many points do you think it'll take for us to get the Scudetto? Or the Scudetto winner, shall I say? Like if it's whoever's to win the title, what do you think that number looks like?
80.
80. What about Riccardo? What about you?
A little bit lower than 80. I think
the points are just so spread out, and it's like.
I mean, we've seen it. What was it? The last month where the top 3 Serie A teams were just dropping points like crazy, just ties and ties here and there. So I don't know. It could happen again where we see. I don't want to see it again. Actually, is what I'm trying to say. From us, where we drop points, continue to see Inter dropping points to these teams, and I don't know. I think it's going to be high 70s. If we get to the 80s, it's nice, but I'm not too concerned about that. It's whatever the points get us the win. So, Scudetto. Gibraltar, if I say that correctly, Gibraltar, Benacer, Tonali, Kessie midfield with Leao, Rebic at the wings, and Giroud up top. What do we think about this?
It's too much of a risk. You don't want to put all of those players in your starting lineup because if one goes down, then who do we have coming off the bench to replace him?
We're looking at Krunic for the midfielders.
I mean, we've experimented with this right against Napoli. I think we did it too, right? I think we had Kessie as a number 10 in that game, and then we also had him against Inter, but he played a very specific role. It wasn't like, oh, he's in the number 10 role, so therefore he's going to be asked to create. It's more of like a shadow this guy. Like wherever he goes, you chase him around, like mark him out of the game. But I think this is more of a conversation to have going into next season. I don't think you're going to see anything drastic with the midfield where we're going to go with like a 4-3-3 in terms of personnel. Like on the field and on the formation team sheet, it may look like a 4-2-3-1, but I think based on that with Benacer, Tonali, Kessie, it almost feels like you're going with a 4-3-3 route, which if I'm being honest, next year, I think that's a conversation to have because we don't have right now the attacking personnel to run out, that type of formation. Although a lot of people have been saying that that's the type of shape they'd like to see us going forward with like a good striker, two creative technical wingers, and being able to throw like three premium midfielders in there. So
Go ahead and move over to this comment here from JZYS. This is on the topic of the defense here when we were discussing Tomori and Kalulu partnership. In my opinion, we need a healthy balance. Big Ficario and Pierre are similar players. An individual like Botman would add strength in different areas, but man, I always liked Alessio. Secretly hope for a renew. Because what were your thoughts here? And I know there's been discussion here on Botman, but and I know that some individuals, we are already starting to look at what next season looks like for the defense here, especially with both Pierre Kalulu and Fikayo Tomori being two amazing center backs at the moment when needed to go ahead and step up. But JZYS says we need a healthy balance in that Botman would go ahead and add strength in different areas. Maybe he's just areas like aerial dominance. Likes to go ahead and see Alessio secretly hope for a renew. I guess what are your thoughts there on the center back situation that we have here at Milan?
I think he makes up a good point there because I think Tomori and Pierre Kalulu do share some similarities in play style. The physical aspects of it. They're very quick players, and obviously you need that. Like we've gone so accustomed to seeing like slow tractor type players in defense over the past years, where it's like, all right, it's fine to have some athleticism, guys who can pass the ball. They're not liabilities in possession. And I do agree there. Like I think Pierre Kalulu for how great he has been playing. Maybe Serie A, he's fine there, but I think if you're going into those difficult Champions League encounters, he is a little bit undersized from a defensive standpoint. So I think people can look at him and say, okay, fine, in like aerial balls and aerial positions, like somebody clear their lines, like sometimes you want that like Merida Demiral type or that Chiellini type who can like be that type of player. And then you have Fikayo Tomori as more of like the pacey passing type guy. I think from what I've seen from Botman too, I think Football Kareem, shout out to him and shout out to like AC Milan comps because they're always churning out these great player comps from performances. He actually put up the performance of Botman versus Chelsea, and this guy can move. He's physical. He's pretty quick, but he's more of like a big presence. And I think that those two players would complement each other extremely well. Real quick on Alessio, I don't have any hard feelings at all if he doesn't renew. I think his mind's made up. I think he's actually going to Lazio. I think Vito's even mentioned it too. We've kind of seen this for probably the past couple months. There was like a little window where maybe we would renew him because there was conversations going on. But yeah, like as Lanky Lurch has just said, like Alessio served this club admirably. Like for him to be able to leave with like a potential Scudetto, like that would be huge because we brought him in a difficult period. He went through some difficult years, and he was still such a foundational member of this team, and he always served as captain in such a respectful manner. So just a quick little tip of the cap to him.
Any closing thoughts here, Miguel, on the Alessio Romagnoli? Would you like to go ahead and see him renew for the club? His exit, what are your thoughts on if he leaves the club?
Personally, it'd be nice. It's kind of like that Cinderella story, like if he does renew. But like, if we're being realistic, we kind of all know that's not going to happen because he doesn't really fit the mold of the club anymore. He's a great player. You can count on him, but he has liabilities that we've seen exposed for the last 2 seasons. And going forward with this club, we're trying to eradicate all those liabilities. And like Matt said, it seems like his mind's kind of made up. He loves Lazio, so it seems like that's probably where he's gonna go. I can't really see him going to any other Serie A clubs. He's been a loyal servant to Milan, and there's probably no other club other than Lazio that he would want to go to. I mean, maybe Juve, but he knows that if he does that, he's going to get a bad rep
Yeah.
like GGO. So he probably won't do that. So yeah, him getting that Scudetto and, bidding farewell to Milan would just be, the great way to end his chapter here. I do want to say to the whole Botman situation, adding Botman to our team, even though we have Kalulu, Tomori, and Kier, would be great, because if you look at a team like Liverpool or Manchester City, the type of quality players that they can bring off the bench are players like Fikayo Tomori, Pierre Kalulu. So, going towards the future of this club where, we want to be able to make it deep into the Champions League, that's what you kind of need. So bringing Botman in, a young, talented player who's a prospect, he's going to understand his role. It's gonna be like one of those things where, Pioli makes it known, like, hey, you might not be a starter, but we don't know what's going to happen. So when you're called upon, just be ready for that. So it'll be interesting to see how, the summer transfer window goes and how we make additions to the team.
Yeah, we are also going to need another defender. We need to cut to the comment here, the question, would you still prioritize Ballman? Absolutely, because with Kair getting up in age, he's like a year-to-year thing. Like, you're kind of extending him on a year-to-year basis here, similar to what you're doing with like Ibrahimovic. He's very good when he does play, Simon Kair, and he's a great leader, but you can't really rely upon him to play, the bulk of the matches each year. And Matteo Gabbia is still a young prospect, which in my opinion, I think will probably get sent out on loan. I just don't see where he's getting minutes. I think if you do loan him out to a Serie A club, that would be beneficial for him. So if ask yourself this, okay, are you comfortable having Kair, Tomori, and Kalulu and Gabbia as your 4 defenders next year? If you are, then that's fine. I respectively disagree. I just think that much like what we have in that midfield, where we have Kessie, like at least right now, Kessie, Benacer, Tonali, like you have options. To Miguel's point, the best teams that win anything, they have a bench and a laundry list of guys that they can go to. If one guy goes down, you're throwing in another premium player. And I think fans have to start getting used to having depth. Just because, people say, oh, where's this guy going to play? Like, and you're not used to depth. Some of these guys, some of the fans that watch Milan, they're not used to having like, wow, like we have like more guys on the bench we could go to. This is great. Like, that's what we need to start getting into that conversation of like, all right, there's a Serie A squad and Serie A depth, and then there's Europe Champions League depth. And I think that's what we have to start moving towards.
Well said. Well, I don't want to go ahead and just keep on chatting here just about transfers, because we have a lot going forward here as Milan fans. For starters, we're still in the Coppa Italia, Scudetto, and we have an exciting summer transfer window coming up here with so much rumored. It seems like a lot of individuals are rumored to be coming into the club. So we'll have time to go ahead and follow along that, of course. But I'll go ahead and close out here with a recap of the Serie A table and give you guys an update on who Milan faces next. And then from there, guys, this is always fun. Post-match thoughts after 1-0 victories, 3 points. Definitely not the most exciting victories we've had, but definitely good conversations we need to have. And with that being said, Milan has played 30 games and sit at the top of Serie A with 66 points. Napoli, just behind them, also have played 30 matches. They sit with 63 points. Inter, game behind, 29 played today, tying. They are sitting at 60 points, while Juventus is creeping up with 56 points, having played 29. So Scudetto race is still on. It's hot. We have Napoli, Inter on our tail, and Juventus not too far behind. It's all up to us here to go ahead and shape our own destiny and try to get the Scudetto win. We host Bologna on the 3rd of April here at the San Siro. So should be an exciting match here coming back after the international break. Any final thoughts here? Admiral would like to know, Matt, how golf is coming along.
I'm actually golfing tomorrow. I've been golfing a lot more. So yeah, it's going pretty well. It's been beautiful today. I don't know about for you guys, Miguel. I know you're in your dorm room right now, I'm assuming, and Riccardo, I know you're in Colorado, but the weather's been great here on the East Coast. So It's great golf weather, and it's just going to make tomorrow's round much sweeter, knowing I don't have to worry about Milan on a Sunday, man. It feels pretty good.
Good, good. Well, I hope you both enjoy a great rest of your weekend. I want to thank everyone who tuned in today. Thank everyone who left a comment. It's always a great pleasure to have you here on our stream here. This has been an exciting day here. Milan coming off victory here against Cagliari. Guys, thank you so much again. And I just hope that everyone has a great rest of your day, okay?